Well, it's great to have Michael Kimmage with us now. He's a history professor at the Catholic University of America and a former State Department expert in the President Obama era. Welcome to you. Western politicians say there is a very real risk of a Russian invasion into Ukraine. Michael, what's your assessment?
I think that's absolutely correct, although you want to be a little bit careful about the word invasion. There are many kinds of Russian tools of interference that may not be, technically speaking, a kind of ground invasion. But that, too, a sort of conventional ground invasion is absolutely within the realm of the possible.
The US and the other countries have sent or already sent or have agreed to send weapons to Ukraine, Michael. You talk about pulling different levers. Is this enough to make Russia reconsider its position? Does this change anything?
It may change a few of the kind of smaller calculations that Russia is making. I don't think it's enough to change the overall calculus. To do that, the West would have to assist Ukraine with air power, which would be an enormous step, and I think make a credible promise or threat to Russia of putting boots on the ground in the event of a wider Russian war. There's clearly skepticism or reluctance to do that from Washington to London to Berlin to Brussels.
Germany, Michael, has been accused by the Ukrainian government of not showing enough support compared to its NATO allies. Do you see a truth in that?
I don't. I think that Germany is being consistent to Chancellor Merkel's policies going back to 2014, in which Chancellor Merkel emphatically argued that there was no military solution. Obviously, the situation is changing, but Germany remains integral to the current sanctions regime on Russia, and Germany would be a linchpin of a future sanctions regime in the event of a wider war. It seems to me that it's Germany's right, not to involve itself militarily in what's going on, and I think that's probably consistent with the views of the German public. So it's Germany's choice in the end, and I think it's a reasonable one.
And from the Russian side, Vladimir Putin has always warned of an eastward expansion of NATO. Is this conflict, this relationship, solvable in any way, even if current tensions are resolved?
I think it is solvable, but it's immensely difficult. It would require extraordinary diplomatic efforts and luck, really, from both sides at this stage. Russia has increased the tempo of things to such an extent, has militarized the situation, has levied a series of unreasonable demands on the West. It's near impossible to respond to that in the short term. But if an invasion is averted and there's time and perhaps the temperature cools down a little bit, there is incentive on both sides to figure out a solution to Ukraine's future that doesn't involve a wider regional war. So there's, I think, a small bit of hope, but you'd have to be very, very optimistic to believe in it in the short term.
Michael Kimmage, great to have you along. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.